3 episodes in. Let's build something. Episode 1 gave you the brief framework and your first co-work project. Episode 2 gave you the 5 mistakes and their fixes. Episode 3 gave you 5 professional scenarios and the patterns that make briefs genuinely strong. This episode is where all of that comes together. We're going to build a complete Claude AI workflow, from context to output to system, for a real professional role, end to end. Nothing abstract, something you can map directly onto your own work. The role we're using is a communications manager, not because it's the only role that matters, but because communications work is universal. Almost every professional produces some version of what a communications manager does. If your role is different, you'll still see exactly how to build this for your context. By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete workflow architecture you can replicate. The same structure works for project management, legal, finance, operations, sales, and almost every other knowledge work role we'll cover in the Deep Dive series. Before we get into it, if you haven't grabbed the brief 1 page yet, it's free in the description. The whole brief framework on 1 printable sheet. And if you want the full 5-day structured path, your first week with Claude AI at work is $20. Same link. Both worth having before you build your own workflow after this episode. Let's build. First, what we mean by a workflow, because it's worth being precise. A task is a single piece of work. An email, a report, a summary. Claude AI helps you do it faster and better than you would alone. A workflow is a connected sequence of tasks that recur together. The monthly communication cycle, the campaign launch process, the stakeholder update rhythm. A workflow has a pattern, the same kinds of tasks for the same kinds of audiences on a regular schedule. The difference matters because workflows are where the leverage compounds. When you use Claude AI for a single task, you save the time it takes to do that task. When you use Claude AI for a workflow, you save the time it takes to do every instance of that workflow, forever. And because the context is already built into co-work, each instance gets faster and better as the project matures. That compounding is what we're building in this episode. Not a one-off task, a system. Our communications manager works for a mid-sized professional services firm. Call it around 200 people, a mix of client-facing and operational staff. Her recurring responsibilities look like this. Monthly internal newsletter, goes to all staff, needs to feel warm and human, not corporate. Quarterly client communications, goes to the firm's top-tier clients, more formal, focused on thought leadership and relationship maintenance. Weekly leadership briefing, a short summary of key internal and external developments for the partner group. Ad hoc communications as needed, announcements, responses, crisis comms when something goes wrong. Before Claude AI, each of these takes significant time. The monthly newsletter alone is a half day, gathering content, writing, editing, formatting. The quarterly client communications are a full day. The weekly briefing is manageable, but still an hour or 2 every week. With a properly built Claude AI workflow, those numbers change dramatically. We're going to show you exactly how. Every Claude AI workflow has the same 3-part architecture, regardless of the role or the specific tasks. Part 1, the foundation, your co-work project context, the standing information Claude AI holds about your role, your organization, your audiences, your standards. You build this once. Everything downstream depends on it. Part 2, the task templates, reusable briefs for each recurring task type. Each one captures the constant elements, audience, tone, structure, constraints, so you only need to add the variable content each time. Part 3, the iteration habit, the brief, draft, direct, revise loop we covered in episode 2. Applied consistently, this is what takes outputs from good to excellent. And with strong task templates, the iteration gets faster every time. Foundation, templates, iteration. Let's build all 3. Part 1, the foundation, building your co-work project context. The project context is the most important thing you'll build in co-work. Everything else depends on it. And as we covered in episode 1, you write it once. Claude AI holds it forever. For our communications manager, the project context looks like this. This project covers the ongoing internal and external communications for Meridian Consulting, a 200-person professional services firm specializing in financial advisory and operational consulting. I'm the communications manager. My audiences are all staff for internal communications, the partner group for leadership briefings, and top-tier clients for external communications. Internal tone, warm, direct, human. We don't do corporate speak. External tone, professional, authoritative, relationship-focused. Our brand voice is confident, but not arrogant. Key recurring deliverables: monthly all-staff newsletter, quarterly client communications, weekly leadership briefing, ad hoc announcements. The firm's current priorities are expanding the financial advisory practice, strengthening client retention in the operational consulting division, and communicating the recent hire of 3 senior partners. That's one paragraph. It covers the organization, the audiences, the tones, the deliverables, the current priorities, and it's now inside every task in this project. Claude AI knows all of that before you type a single brief. Let's make this concrete with a before and after. Without the project context, she opens Claude AI and types, "Write this month's internal newsletter. Topics this month: the new partner hires, the Q3 results, and the upcoming company offsite." Claude AI doesn't know the company name, it doesn't know the tone, it doesn't know the audience. It doesn't know what warm and human means for this particular firm. It produces something generic. She spends an hour rewriting it to sound like Meridian. With the project context, she opens the Cowork project and types exactly the same thing. "Write this month's internal newsletter. Topics this month: the new partner hires, the Q3 results, and the upcoming company offsite." Claude AI already knows it's Meridian Consulting. It already knows the tone is warm, direct, and human. It already knows who the audience is. It already knows about the senior partner hires because they're in the current priorities. The output it produces is specific to Meridian, not a generic newsletter. She spends 15 minutes reviewing and lightly editing. Done. Same prompt, completely different output. The only difference is context. Part 2. Task templates. A task template is a reusable brief for a recurring task type. It captures all the constant elements: the audience, the structure, the tone, the constraints, so that each time you use it, you only need to add what's specific to this instance. Our communications manager has 4 recurring task types: the internal newsletter, the client communication, a leadership briefing, and ad hoc announcements. We're going to build a template for each one. These templates live in Cowork, either as saved notes in the project or as the basis for task instructions. The goal is that when the monthly newsletter comes around, she doesn't start from a blank brief. She opens the template, adds this month's content, and asks Claude AI to produce. Let's look at each one. Template 1, the monthly all-staff newsletter. Produce this month's all-staff newsletter for Meridian Consulting. Topics this month. List topics. For each topic, write a short section of around 100 to 150 words. The newsletter should open with a brief editor's note, warm and personal in tone, around 50 words. Close with a short forward look. What's coming up that staff should be aware of? Total length around 600 words. Format: clear section headings, conversational prose throughout, no bullet points in the body text. Tone: warm, direct, human. This goes to all 200 staff. That template is almost entirely constant. Every month she adds the topics list and updates any specific details. Everything else, the structure, the length, the tone, the format, is already there. Month 1. She uses it, reviews it, edits it. It takes 30 minutes. Month 3, she's faster because the outputs are consistent with what she expects. Month 6, it's 15 minutes because she knows exactly what to direct and Claude AI knows exactly what to produce. That's the compounding effect in practice. Template 2, the quarterly client communication. Produce this quarter's client communication for Meridian's top-tier client list. Theme this quarter: theme. Key messages: list. This goes to our most senior client contacts. typically CEOs, CFOs, and COOs at mid to large organizations. Tone, professional, authoritative, relationship-focused. We're writing to peers, not prospects. Format, a one-page letter format, no bullet points. Opens with a personal note that acknowledges the current business environment. Develops the theme with a clear point of view. We take a position, we don't hedge. Closes with a forward-looking statement and an implicit invitation to connect, around 400 words. Notice the level of specificity on the audience: CEOs, CFOs, COOs. On the tone, peers, not prospects. On the format, a letter, not a report. On the position, we take a point of view, we don't hedge. All of that stays constant quarter to quarter. The theme and the key messages change. Everything else is already locked. Template 3, the weekly leadership briefing. Produce this week's leadership briefing for the Meridian Partner Group. Internal updates this week. List. External developments relevant to the firm. List. Format, 3 sections. Internal this week, external watch, and coming up. Each section, 3 to 5 bullet points maximum. Each one a single clear sentence. No narrative prose. Total length, 1 page maximum. Tone, direct and factual. The partners are time poor and want information, not commentary. Flag anything urgent with a brief note on why it matters. This is the tightest template of the 4. The partners don't want warmth, they want information density. The template reflects that. No prose, no commentary, no padding. Just the facts, flagged for urgency. And because this happens weekly, it's the template that delivers the most cumulative time savings. An hour a week becomes 15 minutes. Over a year, that's roughly 30 hours returned. Template 4, ad hoc announcements. This one is different from the others because ad hoc announcements aren't predictable. They might be a new hire announcement, a change in firm policy, a response to an industry development, or occasionally crisis communications. The template here is less about structure and more about defaults, the starting point for any unexpected communication that needs to go out. Produce an all-staff announcement about topic. Context, what happened and why it matters. Tone, choose from celebratory, informative, reassuring, urgent. Key message, what staff need to understand or do. Length, short, around 150 words. Format, plain email format. Direct opening, no preamble. Close with a clear next step or a note on where staff can get more information. The defaults here, short, direct, plain format, no preamble, mean that even urgent, unplanned communications can be drafted quickly and consistently. She's not starting from scratch under pressure. She's adapting a template she trusts. Part 3, the iteration habit. We covered the brief, draft, direct, revise loop in Episode 2. And in Episode 3, we saw how the strong brief reduces the amount of iteration required. With a strong project context and a well-built task template, the first output from Claude AI is usually 80 to 90% of the way to finished. The iteration habit, the one direction before you finalize anything, takes it the rest of the way. For our communications manager, the iteration looks different for each template. For the newsletter, it's usually a tone direction. The opening note feels a bit stiff. Make it warmer. For the client communication, it's usually a positioning direction. We're not being direct enough about our point of view in the second paragraph. Strengthen it. For the leadership briefing, it's usually a length direction. The external watch section is too long. Cut it to 3 bullets. Notice that these directions are specific and consistent. She knows what to look for because she's been producing these communications for months. The iteration gets faster because her directions get more precise. That's the professional Claude AI workflow in practice, not a one-off shortcut, a system that gets better the longer you use it. Let's watch the whole workflow in action for the monthly newsletter. She opens the Meridian Communications project in Cowork. Claude AI already has the full organizational context. She opens her newsletter template. She adds this month's topics, the 3 new senior partner hires, Q3 financial results, strong revenue, slightly below EBITDA target. the annual company offsite in November. She pastes the template into Claude AI with the updated topics and asks it to produce. What comes back? A complete 600-word newsletter. It opens with a warm editor's note that references the energy of the new quarter. It covers each topic in a clear conversational section. It closes with a forward look to the offsite and what staff can expect. It sounds like Meridian. She reads it. The section on the EBITDA result is slightly defensive. It explains the miss more than it needs to. She types, the Q3 results section is slightly defensive. Acknowledge the EBITDA miss briefly and move on. The focus should be on the strong revenue result and what it means for the practice expansion. Claude AI revises. The section now leads with the revenue story, acknowledges the EBITDA result in one sentence, and pivots to the expansion. Done. She reviews the rest. Minor edits, a name, a date, a specific reference only she knows about. She sends it to her proofreader. Total time from opening cowork to sending to proofreader, 25 minutes. Before this workflow, a half day. Now, the quarterly client communication. This quarter's theme, the changing landscape of operational consulting in a high interest rate environment. Key messages. Organizations are reevaluating their operating models. The firms that act now will have a structural advantage. Meridian has been helping clients navigate exactly this challenge. She opens the client communication template, adds the theme and key messages, asks Claude AI to produce. What comes back? A 400-word letter. It opens with a brief acknowledgement of the current environment. Direct, not alarmist. It develops a clear point of view on the opportunity in the volatility. It closes with a forward-looking note and a subtle invitation to connect. She reads it. The point of view is strong, but the close is too soft. It implies an invitation rather than making one. She types, the close is too soft. Make the invitation to connect more direct. We want clients to pick up the phone, not just feel vaguely invited to. Claude AI revises. The close now ends with a specific invitation and her contact details flagged. Total time, 30 minutes. Before this workflow, a full day, including a round of edits from the managing partner. Let's add up what this workflow saves over a year. The monthly newsletter, from half a day to 25 minutes, saving around 3 hours per month. Over 12 months, 36 hours. The quarterly client communication, from a full day to 30 minutes, saving around 7 hours per quarter. Over 4 quarters, 28 hours. The weekly leadership briefing, from an hour to 15 minutes, saving 45 minutes per week. Over 50 weeks, 37.5 hours. Ad hoc announcements, variable, but typically cut from 45 minutes to 10. Across 10 to 15 announcements a year, roughly 4 to 5 hours. Total annual time saving from this single workflow, approximately 106 hours. That's more than 2.5 full working weeks. Return to strategy, to client work, to the high-value activities that a communications manager should be spending her time on, not drafting and redrafting the same document types over and over. And those numbers compound, because the workflow gets faster the longer she uses it, and the outputs get better as the project context matures. Now let's apply this to your role. The architecture is the same regardless of what you do. Foundation, task templates, iteration habit. What changes is the content. Step 1. Map your recurring responsibilities. What are the 3 to 5 things you do most often that involve writing, summarizing, planning, or communicating? Those are your workflow candidates. Step 2. Build your cowork project context. Who you are, your organization, your audiences, your tone, your current priorities. Write it once. Make it comprehensive. The more Claude AI knows upfront, the less you have to brief each time. Step 3. Build a task template for each recurring responsibility. Capture the constant elements: audience, structure, tone, constraints. Leave placeholders for the variable content. Step 4. Run the workflow. Bring real work to it. Use the brief, draft, direct, revise loop. Notice what you consistently direct and build those directions into the template for next time. Step 5. Let it compound. Don't evaluate it after one use. Give it a month. By then, the patterns are established, the context is mature, and the outputs are consistently strong. Here's a quick audit to run on your own role right now. Think about the last month of work. List the 5 tasks that took the most time. For each one, does it recur? Does it follow a consistent pattern? Does it go to a consistent audience? If a task recurs more than twice a month, and the answers to those questions are mostly yes, it's a workflow candidate. Build the template. It takes 30 minutes. It saves 30 minutes every time from then on. If you've been working through this channel from episode 1, you've already built your first cowork project. You already know the brief framework. You've already fixed the 5 mistakes. All you're doing in this episode is connecting those pieces into a system. That's what a workflow is, a system built from the skills you already have. When you have a properly built Claude AI workflow, 3 things change. First, the relationship with recurring work changes. Tasks that used to feel like drags on your week start to feel manageable. Not because they're less important, because they take less time and produce better results. That shift in how you feel about your recurring responsibilities has an outsized effect on your overall performance. Second, the quality floor rises. Without a workflow, the quality of your outputs varies depending on how much time you have, how focused you are, what else is going on. With a workflow, the quality is consistent because the brief is consistent, the iteration is consistent, and Claude AI's context is mature. Your worst output becomes significantly better than your previous average. Third, the time you save goes somewhere, into the work that actually differentiates you. Strategy, relationships, judgment calls, creative thinking, the things that can't be systematized, the things that are genuinely yours. That's the case for building a Claude AI workflow, not just productivity, reallocation, moving your time from the execution layer to the layer where you're genuinely irreplaceable. There's a meaningful difference between someone who uses Claude AI and someone who uses Claude AI professionally. A user opens Claude AI when they have a task they don't want to do. They brief it roughly. They take what comes back. They close the tab. Claude AI is a convenience, a slightly faster way to do individual things. A professional has built Claude AI into the architecture of how they work. The context is set. The templates are ready. The iteration habit is automatic. Claude AI isn't a convenience. It's a working layer that runs underneath everything. The 4 episodes of this channel so far have been building toward that second thing. Episode 1, the foundation. Episode 2, the habits. Episode 3, the brief as a skill. Episode 4, the system. If you've watched all 4 and applied what we've covered, you're no longer a Claude AI user. You're a Claude AI professional, and the difference in what you can produce and how much time you have to produce it is significant. Here's your challenge for this episode. Pick your single most time-consuming recurring responsibility. The one that takes the most time relative to how important it is. The one that feels like a drag every time it comes around. Build a workflow for it this week. If you haven't already, set up the cowork project. Write your project context. Build the task template. Run it on the next real instance of that responsibility. 1 workflow, 1 week. See what changes. The compounding starts the moment you build it, and it never stops. 4 episodes in, here's where the channel goes from here. We've built the foundation, brief framework, 5 mistake fixes, 5 briefing scenarios, and now a complete workflow architecture. The next phase of Claude for Work goes deeper into specific professional contexts. The workflow series takes the architecture from this episode and builds it out for specific roles. Project management, legal, finance, operations, marketing, and solo operators. And the deep dive series goes long form on specific scenarios. If you're a project manager who wants to see a complete Claude AI workflow for managing a client engagement from kickoff to close, that's a deep dive. If you're in legal and you want to see how to systematize document review and drafting, deep dive. The foundation is built. What comes next is specific to your world. Subscribe if you haven't, and tell me in the comments which workflow are you going to build first. And which deep dive do you most want us to make? Both of those answers shape what we build next. Quick recap before we get to the products. Episode 1, the brief framework and your first cowork project. The foundation. Episode 2, 5 mistakes and 5 fixes. The habits that make the foundation work. Episode 3, 5 professional scenarios and the patterns that make briefs genuinely strong. The brief as a skill. Episode 4, the 3-part workflow architecture. Foundation, task templates, iteration habit, applied to a complete professional workflow. The system. These 4 episodes are designed to be returned to, not just watched once. As your experience with Claude AI deepens, the earlier episodes land differently. The brief framework feels more intuitive. The mistakes feel more obvious. The workflow architecture feels more natural. That's intentional. This is a curriculum, not a catalog. Come back to it. The PDFs in the description are designed for exactly that. Here's the whole series so far in one picture. The foundation. Know how to brief Claude AI. Episode 1 and 3. The habits. Avoid the patterns that limit what Claude AI can do for you. Episode 2. The system. Connect the foundation and the habits into a workflow that compounds. Episode 4. Everything that comes next builds on all 3. The workflow series assumes you have the foundation and the habits. The deep dives assume you have the system. If you feel like you're not quite there on any of those yet, go back. That's what the channel's for. 2 things worth grabbing from the description if you haven't already. The brief, 1 page, is free. If you're about to build your first workflow and you want the brief framework on 1 printable sheet, that's it. Print it, keep it next to your screen for the first few weeks, and it'll feel natural faster. Your first week with Claude AI at work is $20. It's the structured 5-day path through everything we've covered in the first 4 episodes. Brief templates, cowork setup, workflow building, and a review on day 5. If you want to turn what you've watched into what you've built, it's the fastest route there. Both links in the description. Same creator as Claude for Lawyers, the Gumroad links are via that page while we get the Claude for Work store set up. That's episode 4. Foundation, task templates, iteration habit. 3 parts, 1 system. 106 hours a year in a single workflow for a single role. Build yours this week. Start with 1 responsibility. Let it compound. Serious skills. Actual output. Every time. See you in the next one.